that would be nice if you could just be
It's a
like,
condenser mic, so it condenses all the sound right here.
Oh, okay.
And so if you talk outside of this, it's weird.
oh, I see.
Yeah.
So
And that's
what
so it
if I
doesn't pick
do
stuff up.
something like this?
I'm gonna have a stroke while editing. That's what I'm gonna do. What's going on, everybody? Oh, I didn't start that well at all. But you know what?
That was well said.
It was genuine.
Authentic.
What's going on, everybody? How we doing?
Doing well.
Not too shabby.
Good cigar?
Great cigar.
Duh.
The CHC Series E, Crown Heads Court Series E. It's got like a Van Halen wrapping around it. This is a solid,
It's very good.
small cigar, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Well, today,
Yeah.
who do we got?
I don't know.
Who am I? Today we got Dan.
Adam.
Joseph,
Grayson.
What's
and
up?
Daniel sitting in the fifth chair.
off screen.
Our glorious tech expert.
Pipe expert.
Smoking pipe. Oh, how was everybody's week? Or it's been, how was everybody's week?
It's been long.
It's a Saturday. Yeah?
Some long weeks. Yeah.
It was long, I guess.
I worked
It's
a
always
lot of.
long in between, like, Labor Day, like, once you get to the end leading up to Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
that chunk of time just feels kind of like
Just
it's a
heavy.
grind.
Yeah,
It is.
very heavy.
Yeah.
I don't
Because
know
we're
if
all prepping for just different holidays to come up.
Right.
And so it's like, we're all just hunker down. It's almost only 10 more days. Only 9 more. You know what I mean?
Well, it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's been cold outside too.
Mm-hmm.
I've been working 9 or 10-hour days
Nice.
every day.
Yep.
The overtime.
Is that where the muscles are coming from, or is that just the vest showing them off?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's a
What
optical
muscles?
illusion. It's just an
What
illusion.
muscles?
Yeah. This is mass.
I'm pretty sure the muscles are from the cigars. That's
If you
why
s-
he smokes them. You know?
Are you lacing them?
curl them into you just curl them in.
Just got some TRT in there.
Yeah, it's underrated.
Did you
the
know
health
that you can
industry
absorb-
doesn't recognize it as a legitimate exercise.
If you squat while smoking a cigar, it's added resistance.
That's right.
And
this
I
just
don't.
weighs something.
I didn't know if you guys knew this or not, but if you inject TRT into your cigars, you actually absorb it way better than if you inject it into your bloodstream.
I love
You
that.
guys are welcome.
I love that you know that.
I am a
So-
licensed professional.
At
Take
nothing.
my advice.
yes.
Someone's
You guys
coming
are
after
all
you.
gonna die.
But okay, so as a person who my entire family's full of teachers, what's it like for a teacher these days? I got friends who are teachers, and I never became one. But what's it like?
I mean, I think my experience is different from your average teacher because I don't teach at a public school or I'm
okay.
at a small classical school, so it's very different, I think, than your average public school teacher.
Like lesson planning and all that stuff? Or I mean, you still got to do that, obviously.
Yeah, I think even with that stuff, like I have a lot more freedom.
Really?
Like I like the ability to like add books to the curriculum and things like that. I mean, I have to get it approved, but in public school, you have like here are your standards. This is
Right.
I think you're a little more strapped down to a certain extent.
Okay.
Yeah, with all the sex books.
Yeah.
Textbooks? Is that what you said?
Sex books.
I was trying to save you.
No. Listen, you call a spade a spade.
That's right. It is what it is.
Yeah, so that type of stuff, I don't have to deal with that.
Oh, nice.
If I did, I probably wouldn't be a teacher.
Fair enough.
There are a lot of teachers leaving for those and other reasons.
Yeah.
Well, because it's not the school doesn't run the school anymore. The parents do.
And yeah, right.
It's
And
legitimate.
and school boards.
Right. And
Yeah.
you have no idea who's on the school
Yeah.
boards, and then you try to get on it, and it's all bureaucracy, and
Right.
then I mean,
I would almost rather it if parents ran schools a little bit. I mean, not in every sense, but just like their input, I think, is is important. Because like who's going to be more invested and arguably care more about their child's well-being than the parents?
You hope.
You hope. Yeah, it's not always the case.
Yeah.
So today we were going to talk about
Yep.
fatherhood
Yeah.
and how that ties into Saint Joseph the Worker, I think. Oh, no, that was going to be a separate.
I think we could do
Yeah, just
both.
see where it goes. I
yeah,
guess.
I guess.
It's true, but primarily fatherhood.
Okay. All right. Well then, there's only two fathers at the table. How
right.
how old is Gemma now?
She's a year and a half.
Year and
Almost.
a half. Almost.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And that's. I mean, I've got. Yeah, Ben's almost a year and a half. I think it'll be a year and a half in January.
Mm.
What's it? Wow. There's like lulls.
Mushbrain?
Yeah, man. Just bad. You know what? Just
Well, so what's it like? What have you? I mean, what? Yeah, what's it
Yep,
like
mush
having
brain.
a 1.5-year-old daughter?
It's awesome. I love it. I feel like like having kids is gonna challenge you, but it like does in like different ways or ways that you like don't expect.
So elaborate on that.
Like especially like a 1-year-old, like they're so good at just being in the moment, and I think being adults in the modern world, we're so bad at being in the moment.
yeah.
But in order to be a good parent, you like have to be in the moment. Like you have to take each moment as it comes. And if you're thinking too much about, I don't know, all these things I need to do, then you're not going to be present and you're going to get frustrated, and which those things do happen. But, yeah, I think just in the first year and a half of having her, I've grown in just learning to be in the moment, and I don't know. Still learning to do that though.
Are you and your wife like getting a lot closer since Gemma came along? Like learning to lean on each other more and more, and
Yeah, definitely. It's also they say like the marriage still needs to come first even when you have kids.
right.
But that's difficult when you have a 1-year-old.
Oh,
You
Right.
can't be like,
I'm
oh,
sure.
you go over there and play. We're having, we're spending some time together right now. It's like when they're awake, someone needs to be watching them all the time.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
she's getting into everything. So it's difficult to figure out how to implement that of like, no, our marriage is still first when, and we only have one kid right now. And even with one kid, it's difficult to find that time. So I think it's just like you have to learn to be super intentional and like plan that stuff in. Otherwise, it just ends up,
Falls
getting
away.
pushed to the side. Yeah,
Yeah.
inevitably.
Well, and it's like you said, because she's almost 1.5. Well, 1.5-year-olds, yes, they and kids in general are just really good at living in the moment. But the issue for the adult in that is they're living in the moment. Therefore, whatever they need, you need to be accountable for.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
and most of 90% of the time, it's your time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's about 10% their toys, but then like 90% of the time they're just like, I want you.
Right.
Right. And so I was actually talking to my wife about this yesterday because growing up or growing up, I'm a grown up now, and I'm realizing things are shifting and perspective is shifting in my fatherhood and in my work-life balance, and trying to run 2 companies and just different things. Like it's not easy. And so actually the most valuable thing to me is time. And it's not money, it's time.
Mm-hmm.
Money will come.
Yeah.
Money will come with hard
Yeah.
work and blessing or whatever. But it's time that's the most valuable.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a friend about this the other day because we were talking about like it started with like Catholicism and their view on having children and different things, and he was just like, but honestly, like one of the worst things that somebody could do is waste my time, because it's like when you're giving your time specifically to your children, and someone tries to interrupt that, it's because we seeped into like anger issues and like what sets you off and what makes you angry, and this all correlates, I promise. But we got onto the topic of like wasting time, and even if I decide when the kids are in bed to sit down with my wife and we scroll funny videos for 20 minutes, that's still something that I decided to do, right? That's not a waste that I think, right? But then when someone else, because I'm a real estate agent, and so like people, my job is to cater to other people, their needs, their wants for, excuse me, buying a house, whatever.
Well said.
Thank you. But I had a conversation with a client last night, and, you know, my wife just got her license, so she's kind of learning the back and forth and how to treat yourself within this business, because you can't cater to everything. You can't. It's not physically possible. Then you just ignore your family. I know agents like that. They don't have a life. Yeah. They make $500,000 a year, but they don't have a life at all. They've been through like 4 different marriages, and like it doesn't work out well because you don't have that balance. And you don't. And somebody was trying to tell me yesterday, well, why can't you just? Because we're putting a house in the market, and we're trying to get everything settled and everything like that. But like they want more advertising, so they're like, come take before pictures before the professional pictures, and can't you drive out here? And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, why not? I'm like, because I'm not going to waste my time. Because it's a waste of my time. If you want my professional assistance, then you're going to let me do it my way. But if you don't trust me to do this, then find someone else. Because you're not going to waste my time. And especially when, you know, there's 4, soon to be 5 running around upstairs, my time is very valuable.
Right. Well, and only you can decide that.
Exactly
you
right.
know, like to this other person, they're like, well, this isn't a waste of time. But to you
right.
and all your other responsibilities, it's like, not that it would be bad use of the time, right. but it's the time that, oh no, you're good. But in that, you know, like in your life, it wouldn't be time well spent.
No.
Well, and that's the difficult thing, I think, is there are certain types of jobs almost where it almost feels like you're set up for failure. Like, unless you're like so intentional, like it just starts sliding into like stealing more and more time away.
Exactly.
You know,
right.
and again, I think that's a problem of like the modern world. Like, how do you set up those parameters?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think it's definitely not easy to do.
No.
Well, and something you kind of touched upon is, you know, the value of time and how you spend your time. It kind of reminded me of that Bible verse that I can't tell you what book, what verse, but it says you can only serve one master. And this is something my brother told me when I was kind of floundering, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
And funny thing is my parents even were like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. But you can, and so we were having a cigar, me and my older brother Tim, and we were talking, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do as like a career. I don't know what I'm passionate about. I don't know. He goes, what do you like? Like, what do you want? Like, when you think about it, what do you want? I want a wife. I want a family. And he goes, boom. He goes, that's it. Because if you want a job and you want something that you're in, it's not saying that you can't have a job that you're passionate about, but if what I want is a family, and what I want is to be the best husband I possibly can, and to be the best father I possibly can, that means I'm going to have to sacrifice time from work in order to do that.
Yeah.
Because the more you spend your time in, that's what you're going to get better at, right? Think about it, like Kobe Bryant was one of the best basketball players ever. He dedicated most of his time to basketball.
Yeah.
Like,
Do you think if he knew he was going to die, like when he did, like would he have spent less time at basketball?
I don't think so.
Okay.
That's what he wanted. Which I mean, you could see.
Because he had like, how many kids? At least 2.
I think he's got 2 or 3.
Or 3.
Oh.
3.
Like, do you think he was balancing that well? Like, was he still playing when he had little kids, or was he already retired at that point?
He had kids.
They were young. But yeah, he was still playing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as I understand from just all the love and support that he got and everything, I think he really was a good father because all his kids and his wife, they loved him, like adored him.
No, I definitely have heard that he was a really good father, but I'm like, had he known like you're gonna die at this age, would he have been like, well, you know,
Well, no,
like, would he regret like
yeah.
not giving more time to his family?
No, because I think it's a
don't know.
balancing act. Like we talk, it's a balancing act of time. Time is the most valuable currency because it's the only thing that none of us can control except how we use it.
Yeah.
Right? We can't control
can't
the
get it
passing of
back.
time. You can't get it back. You can't, and you know, it's an infallible part of nature, and so it's the balancing act. It's the work and play. It's the come on, brain. Just stopped.
I'm trying.
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. I wish I could help, but I'm smooth brain this morning.
No,
too.
it's a balancing act of work and play, and it's also a balancing act with you and your wife, because I would not. I mean, I'll just go straight into personal. There was a long discussion that my wife and I had when this started kicking off, and people started recognizing, and like there were people supporting us and things like that. And so I had to sit down with my wife and be like, here's how this has to work. Because she was like, it seems like you're doing this so much and we're not spending enough time together. And I was like, you're right. This is always on my mind. Eventually I want this to be our careers. That would be really cool. Yeah. But it takes time, it takes effort, it takes push and marketing and all the things. And she was like, all right, well, let's compromise. And so we sat down and balanced, and I was like, give me 8 times a month. Not for extended like all-nighters or anything like that. Just give me 8 times a month for like 4 hours each increment. We decide when, you and I will decide when to schedule, but during those times, and I will do my best to make sure that like everything is taken care of before I leave. But can you assist me in those times with the kids? And then every other day of the month, I'm yours. Right? And during those times, now there are things that come up randomly that you kind of have to deal with in the moment. And that's also juggling your time. Because like, again, when it comes to, especially in the real estate world, like there's stuff, no deal is ever the same. And it's always chaos. And so you have to roll with the punches as much as you can. But it is, it's the balancing act, and it's also having the right person behind you who says, yeah, I'll support you in this,
Well, I think just like money, you have to have a budget, and the two of you have to sit down and agree to it and discuss it and figure out where you want your money to go. I think you have to do that with your time too. You got to budget it out and come to an agreement. So even if you and Caitlin decided that you could have 16, nights that you go out and do Bourbonist stuff.
I thought you were going to say 16 kids,
That's
and I was
where I
like,
thought you
get
were
your, stop speaking with your face.
If that is your vocation, that is a wonderful thing.
No, 5's good. I'm fine. 1 for each finger on one hand. I don't have another hand.
My wife and I, we just want a van load, which
That's okay, but that's 8 passengers. I've got
there
7
are 16
passengers.
passenger vans.
They're not worth the money.
Get a school bus.
You
No,
know
we
what? We
would've had to
decided
start
to
it
move. We
along.
gutted a school bus and turned it into a house.
I've seen
We
it.
started our own school.
That's right. One day they will be our very own
Then or you
baseball
can get
team.
one of those old-time military transport trucks and just have them strapped to the bench seats.
That'd be awesome.
That would be
One's in
sick.
like the heavy gunner seat.
Yeah,
Dad,
that's
how does
right.
this work? Don't touch.
Just don't pull the trigger. It's still live. I forgot to
right,
forgot
now-
to unfeed it this morning.
Now remember,
Oh, gosh.
remember Matthew, when we go under a bridge, you need to duck. This dumb kid. The fact that I had to tell you that a 3rd time is concerning.
You just hear a
You okay?
All right. You turn to the hospital. There
But-
goes my time.
16 hours. What?
Children.
What were you saying?
So, even if, and I'm just throwing out a ridiculous number, but let's just say, like, you two decided that you could have, 16 hours, a month, or, as long as you two agree on that,
Yep.
then you can budget out everything else around it. You
Right.
know, but the importance of the two of you deciding on it, and neither of you just grasping at the pool of time that you have and just taking whatever you want and as much as you want. You know, I think that's the importance of a marriage, is budgeting out that time, coming to an agreement, you know, and then sticking to it.
Yeah.
You know, but then both of you are on the same page and you can support
100%.
it.
Yeah.
I think we also live in such a time where there's so much me time. You know, I need me
Yeah.
time. And most of it's not even like productive me time. You know, like scrolling on your phone is not restful at all.
Yeah.
You know, staying up super late and then having to get up super early is not restful. You know, and like one thing that I was taught is, you know, like part of freedom is having a really good structured schedule. You know, and like a bedtime, like go to bed at 9:30 and then get up at 6:30. You know, and stick to that. But you can really sabotage the next day and your entire week if you excessively drink the night before, excessively stay up too late. You know, like you can fill your time with so many things that aren't conducive to a flourishing, happy home. And in the moment, it might feel good and fun and relaxing, but then the next day, it hasn't served
Most
its
definitely
ultimate
not.
purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't serve its
100%.
purpose.
Well, and part of that is, I think, because as Americans we're kind of workaholics overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we work a ton, and you have a structured day. Like you have a 10-hour work day where it's like all your time is allotted for. Then you get home, what you want to do is like kind of rebel and be like, well, in that case, I'm going to do all this. You know, I'm going to waste all this time. Or
Yeah.
Right.
you want that unstructured time, but then like you're saying, usually you'll regret it the next day or the
Right.
next week or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm-
It's a
I'm
law
a-
of extremes.
There is. I'm
Yeah.
a big proponent of investing in the next day. You know, so when I come home from work, doing things that evening that will make tomorrow better
Easier.
and
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when I had a grass to take care of, you know, I would think about, okay, what does Saturday look like? I've got these things I want to do. Hey, if I cut the grass on Thursday,
Yeah.
I could eliminate that on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such, you know, like that was fun. That was for me budgeting out my week and figuring out, you know, what I could do to make things better. And just, you know, and there might be 2 or 3 days where, you know, I do nothing but work. I come home, you know, after work, I go to the gym, I come home, I cut the grass, and then I do food prep for the week, and then I finally eat dinner, and it's 10 o'clock, I'm going to bed, and all I did was just work. But then, like, you hit Wednesday or Thursday, and then into the weekend, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, it's bliss, you know, and so, like, just planning that out.
And that prevents the like highs and lows.
Right.
Because like I've had weeks where like I start off the week really well, and then by the time you get to Wednesday, you just feel like you're like ready to crash already.
Mhm.
And so like like thinking about your week ahead of time, be like, how do I prevent that like Wednesday crash? How do
Right.
I structure things so that each day will be just as good as the day before?
Right.
Right.
And I'll get to that next weekend not having burnt out multiple times in between.
Well, I think too, people. I think we forget that energy is renewable. You know, you can come home from work and be tired, but then energy can be renewed. You start doing something productive that is mentally perhaps restful, you know, and productive, and then you get that second wind. You know, so oftentimes I think when we think we have nothing left to give, if we just dig a little bit deeper,
It's more a mental problem.
it's
than-
more of a mental
Yeah.
problem. Like energy is almost limitless. Hey, for most of us do not live our lives to the limit of our energy.
Right.
Most of us just don't. I mean, we don't live in a time in society that demands that of us.
Right.
We're not getting up at 5 a.m. and having to
milk a cow.
milk a cow, plow a field by walking behind a mule,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, throwing stones out of our way as we go. We're not doing that. You
Yeah.
know, I'm cold. Okay, I got to go chop some wood first and make a fire. You know, we don't live our lives in that taxing of an environment.
Right.
I remember, as a little story growing up, going on summer break, and they were some of the laziest 3 months of my life on
Yep.
summer break. And I remember not doing anything and being exhausted every
Yeah.
single day. And it's because I wasn't doing anything. My entire body and mind
shut
was just
down.
shutting down and just laying dormant.
Yeah.
You know, and then and then like, okay, so you've done nothing all day. And then my mom comes in the room and she's like, hey, could you go do this? And I'd be like, what, really? This is like the worst time. I'm just starting a movie, and you start complaining, you're upset. And it's only it's because I'm tired and I'm just being lazy.
Yeah.
But then when you start that project, you go outside and it's like Theoden grasping his sword and all of his strength comes back from Lord of the Rings. I love that image. And suddenly that strength comes back and you're like, oh, wait, wow, the fresh air is nice.
Yeah.
Let's get to work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I think that's fatherhood is
Yeah.
you come home from work and, you're tired. And I think there are things that you can do to help transition and, like maybe it's your wife bringing you a cold beer when you walk through the door. But energy can be renewed.
Wait till you have kids.
Man,
Hey,
Guess
train
what?
the
They're
kids.
changed and alive. Get your own beer.
That is
No,
that's an
no,
excuse.
you train your kids.
That's right.
that's a really good point, though. I heard someone
Come here,
say this
boy.
once. They were like, for a man, for a husband and a father, the moment of sanctity is when you get home from work and you're about to turn the doorknob. Because, like, you have this ideal vision of, oh, the house is clean, your wife's all dressed up and looks beautiful, dinner's ready. Like, that would be the ideal. And sometimes you do get that. Mm-hmm. But you have to be ready to walk in and, like you're saying, be handed the dirty diaper baby and the house is a disaster and you got to just jump right into, like, more work.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to be
But,
prepared.
like, being willing for anything.
Yeah.
Or being ready for anything.
Yeah.
Like, that's the moment of sanctity for a man where you're like, kill your expectations.
100%.
Get ready
100%.
for hell.
Well, and it's like you said, because this is, again, I'll go in personal a little bit, but my grandpa's 76 or 77 years old, still runs a 180-acre farm every day.
Wow.
Gets
That's
up at 5 a.m., goes to check the cows, make sure they're fed, goes to bale the hay, does all this, everything at 7. And he just had a full knee replacement. Like,
Wow.
he's a badass human.
That's a man.
And he also has time to come home, goof around. We're going there on Sunday, actually, or tomorrow, to spend for like Thanksgiving and birthdays and all that stuff. And like, it's just he still has enough time to be funny and joke around and and then he doesn't he'll take a nap, of course, like right after lunchtime. He'll have a full belly and take like a half-hour nap. But then he'll pop right back up and he's fine.
Yeah.
And it's that because my uncle did the same thing. He ran like a 60, 70 acre farm for most of his life. And then when he retired and he was done and he sat and now he can barely get out of a chair and he's the same age as my grandfather. He can barely get out of a chair and he's told by his doctor, if you don't start moving, you will die.
Yep.
Like,
Wow.
but that's the power of the human body. It's a machine.
It is.
And if you don't oil the machine, then it's going to break down.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is that you almost need a lifestyle that forces you
Yeah.
to do things because we'll take the path of least resistance if it's there.
Yeah.
But if you have a lifestyle, it's like, no, you have to be at this job at this time. It's like, all right, you're going to go.
Yeah.
But then, like you have, like as a teacher, I have summers off. So then in the summers, I'm not waking up at 5:30 anymore. I don't have to be up anytime, so I'm sleeping till 8.
Yeah.
And it's like, unless you have things in your life that are demanding things of you, we're not going to be as disciplined.
Right.
We just won't.
Well, that's what, so working as a server at a country club, especially a really small country club, I'm kind of asked to be a jack of all trades. So, like, if you go to a big country club, you've got dedicated people who are servers. You got dedicated people who are porters. You got, you've got people who have their designated lanes. Whereas at our country club, we're so small. Like, we have a total of 3 rooms that you can use. A dining room, a living room, and a card room. That's it.
Yeah.
And then we have a second floor where we have a storage room, our men and women's locker room, and then the GM's office. And the storage room has all of our dining room chairs. So I have to, a lot of the times, since I'm one of the few able-bodied men there, a lot of the times I'm called to take the chairs up and down the stairs. And sometimes there's like a 60-person event that's happening. So 60 chairs got to come downstairs. So it's walking up and down the stairs 20, 30 times, depending on how
Yeah.
much help I got.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, like, and the funny thing is falling in love with exercise science. Like, one of the things that I kind of prayed for was I was like, I would love a job to where I could get paid to lift weights.
Yeah.
God was like, hold my beer. I gotcha. So I lift chairs up and down stairs. Whenever we get an alcohol shipment, I have to carry beer cases, wine cases up and down stairs because our wine room's down in the basement. And then our beer cooler's down in the basement. So, like, it's nonstop walking, which is great.
Don't you love that?
It's well, and so I've noticed, Joseph, whenever those days to where I don't get as much done as I should have, to where I'm lazy, when I'm asked to go do those chairs, when I'm asked to go, I instantly notice there's this level of bitterness, but also a little bit of resentment, like when I'm asked, because I've got this laziness to where I'm like, I'm more tired too, which is the funny thing.
Right.
But when
Yeah,
I
right.
do say, all right, Dan, go do it.
Yeah.
Like, you have been called, go do it. And the challenge is to do it even without being called. But
Yeah. Well, yeah.
to be a little bit more
creating
proact-
the motivation
more
for yourself.
proactive.
Yeah.
But when I go finally do it, once I get that task done, I'm more energized to go do the
Right.
next one.
Right.
And it's crazy that we are, I mean, shoot, God even says it, we're meant for work.
Yeah.
And so when we finally and humbly accept that work that's in front of us, whether we like it or not, whether it's to clean a toilet or it's to run a Fortune 500 company, like
Yeah.
when you accept the tasks that are called upon for you specifically to do, and you humbly accept it without grumbling, without complaining, you get this almost rejuvenation. And something we've learned in science is that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It is always there.
Yeah.
But like you
That's
said,
interesting.
it's always renewable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you accept that cross that's been laid upon your shoulders,
Yeah.
you almost renew this energy within you. Even though it may be painful, sure, and you may physically get tired, but mentally and I feel like spiritually, you're rejuvenating yourself, and it's almost like you're recharging that battery as you're physically wearing yourself out.
Yeah.
Well, and you brought up a great point, I think, of like, if you have a Saturday where you're just like vegging out all day, watching movie after movie, eating whatever you want, sitting around on the couch, you're not actually rejuvenated by that. You actually feel even more tired, even more lazy. So it's the real like leisure that we need is actually just a different type of work.
Yeah.
Because like you think about like sitting down like to pray or going to mass on Sunday, like that's work.
Yeah.
It's just a different type of work away from a job, let's say.
Right.
It's not the physical kind of work.
Isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
But you go to mass, it's like it's demanding something of you. It's not like you stand when you want, you kneel when you want. It's like, no, you stand when you are supposed to stand.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what you feel,
Yeah.
right? You just do it.
Yeah.
And then you sort of like break that cycle in your head of like doing what you feel like doing or what you want to do, and you just do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Well, that's Grayson. That's a very new concept of doing what I want to do. Mm-hmm. Because
Yeah.
and that only came from strong men creating good times.
That's
That's the only reason why we're here is because strong men created good times and great innovations, but this is the only time I think in human history that we have the option to waste time and get away with it. You know, nobody.
That's a good point.
If I go home tomorrow and I don't see anybody, nobody's gonna know what I did.
Nope.
You know, we're not gonna suffer. You know, like my home is still gonna be heated. There's still food on the table. No one's gonna know what I did. You know, and that is a luxury that I think is very much abused nowadays.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it's a luxury and it's a burden for
It
that
is.
same reason.
Yeah.
It is.
Because you don't have as many demands on you.
Well, how many people have come out of retirement and gotten a job, even just as like a little grocer, because they had nothing to do. They needed something.
Yep.
Because
I bet it's like 40%.
I
Oh, at
Maybe-
least.
maybe,
At
maybe
least.
not.
I would bet. I mean, you know, I think most people,
Yeah.
you know, you need something, a hobby, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Well, that's go ahead.
No, I just there was, I mean, a couple things. Number one, I used to be a manager at Home Depot, and and I ran like 5 different departments, and most of the people that I oversaw were retirees. People who were like, I retired, sat home for a year, and gained a bunch of weight, and got unhealthy, and was bored all the time. So I had to do this. And it's either, I had a retired plumber, I had a retired cabinet maker on my team, I had a guy who retired from like custom cabinetry sales, but he was in his like late 60s and still knows way more than anybody. He's the perfect employee for Home Depot.
Oh,
Perfect.
Yeah.
But like he couldn't sit at home all day. And then one of them was obviously like, my wife is going to kill me. I needed to get out of the house. Like
It's healthier that I'm here.
it's right.
Dying is
There's
not
one
healthy.
less body.
Well, and that's. I was just gonna say that reminds me of a story. There was a CEO of like a massive company who was gonna retire, and he called up. He was personal friends with Trump, and he goes, "Hey, I'm gonna retire." And Trump kind of took a second and goes, "I think that's a horrible mistake." And he goes, "Why? I'm going to have so much free time. I'm going to be able to finally see all the friends that I'll finally have time to hang out with friends and hang out with my wife and all this stuff." And Trump goes, "I'm telling you, give it 5 years. I will be the only person who will return your phone call."
I think I heard
Within
this story.
5 years, sure enough, the guy calls him up and he goes, "Oh my God, you were right." And it's because you have so much free time to where even if you find a hobby, like that's not necessary, even if you do a hobby all the time, that's still not necessarily being productive unless that hobby is actually somewhat beneficial to society.
Yeah.
Like if you're retired and all you do is play golf, like you're not benefiting anyone else. Even if you, let's say you bring some friends out to play golf, like there's a,
Careful. We like golfing.
no, I love golf.
It's
I'm
when
a
you make
golfing
that
nerd,
like
but
that becomes everything. Like,
Yes.
the point
Yeah,
of my
yeah, yeah.
retirement is golf.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be happy.
No.
But Dan, if you were, let's say you're a grandfather and you go golfing and you bring your grandchildren with you, or you bring friends and you use it as an opportunity to invest and
Yes.
and mentor to younger people, well then that's different.
But that's where I think the problem is that like because of again all these modern inventions of the car and families are torn apart, villages are torn apart. You no longer have like, oh, the grandparent is here with all these grandkids, and that becomes their work. Like I'm going to invest in all these lives that are around me. Like a lot of grandparents don't have any grandkids around them, so then you're like,
What do I do?
I have nothing else
Right.
to pour into, so I'm just going to go get a job, work at Walmart, work at a golf course, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
that's
kind of
true.
like a sad reality.
That's
I
true.
think.
Not everyone has grandchildren
Well,
to
and
invest in.
Yeah.
That's what Native Americans did, right? The elders of the population, the elders, they all kind of taught
The rest.
they taught the village, they taught everyone, and so
Right.
they took their time and invested. Now, everyone invested their time into better the community, right? And I think that is a massive intention, and especially in the Western world, that has been lost, right? Because everyone's so individualistic, to where it's like me, what's best for me, what's best for me, when instead, what if you thought of someone else for once?
Yeah.
And put someone else above your own. Now, that's not to say you're used as a doormat, right? Because
Sure.
it's kind of that aspect of filling other people's cup, right? Your cup is filled so you can go fill other people's cup.
Yeah.
But your cup has to be filled first in order for you to fill others, right?
Yeah.
For the most part, I think that expression or that saying
I think it's
is
abused.
I think it's abused and misunderstood a lot, because you can give what you can give imperfectly, and you can give what maybe you don't have. So we don't give out of perfection. We give out of generosity and what we have.
Yeah.
So I might be growing in something and learning about something, and I share from what I have, as I'm progressing.
Right.
Right.
Well, and
So,
that's
like-
what I meant.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to just clarify, because when I first heard that, I thought, oh, well, I have to be completely healed of my, hurts and my crosses before I can turn around and help somebody else. And I
It's
don't
like
think
you'll be
that's
dead.
true. Right. Well, that's called death.
You
Yeah.
missed your mark, bud.
That's right. But it's as I'm struggling, it's as I'm crawling through that trench, I'm pulling people with me. I'm helping people along.
Exactly.
It's making sure that you are also striving and not just like, not doing anything to improve yourself and only focusing on all these
Because
other things.
then that
they
becomes,
both need to happen simultaneously.
Yeah, because then it almost becomes selfishness. It's like, oh, give me another year, then I'll be ready to help you. It's like, no, I think you probably have things. Like an alcoholic that's struggling with alcoholism can still help somebody else that's maybe just starting in.
Oh my
on
gosh.
It.
Yep.
Like,
100%.
you're like, hey, I'm struggling with this. I'm not perfect at it, but I'm also recognizing this in you too.
Yeah.
Like you can turn around and sooner than you think you can and help somebody.
Yeah. And I'll bring this up again. It's the second time, but I never met him. He was a big staple in who I was or who I am now, just because I was in a very dark place when I discovered this guy. But Matthew Perry just died recently. He was.
I actually don't know who that is.
It's okay. So he was Chandler on Friends. And he did 14 stints in rehab. He was, and
Whoa.
he actually went on like I think it was Piers Morgan, and he like argued with like scientists and stuff who were like, no, an addiction is a choice, and he goes, you think I chose to do this shit? Fight me on that. Go ahead. He's like, the first drink is the choice, but if you have an addictive like disease, the rest of it is not. And so even though he was struggling, he opened the Perry House, where he was like he bought a house in Malibu and then decided to move and turn that house into like a place for people who are struggling to go while he was still struggling.
Right.
And it's that you can, like you said, you can be that huge struggle, but at least you can use that to be like, hey, look, I've been here. I'm still struggling with it, but come along with me
Right.
because I can help you through it.
Well, and that's where I think there is a time and a place for that phrase of like, get yourself together. It's like,
What does that actually mean?
If you have such an intense addiction, for certain people, you can't do anything for anyone.
No.
Like the best thing you could do is go away, go to rehab for 6 months, then come back. So in
100%.
certain situations, like, no, it actually does
sure.
mean stop trying to help other people and get your act together.
Yeah.
Then you can go back to that.
Yeah.
So.
But I think that channels into, I guess, just it channels into, into St. Joseph the Worker. I mean, there's a new movie that just came out yesterday, Journey to Bethlehem. It's like a musical version of the story of Mary learning that she's pregnant with Jesus, and it goes into Joseph's perspective of like, everyone's telling me to leave this woman, but I know I have to stay. But there's just something about it that I believe her. I believe that she didn't cheat on me. I believe her, right? And I haven't seen the movie. I want to, but it goes into like his, like you were saying, that responsibility of like that's the ultimate responsibility. He didn't have to. And actually, and I'm not comparing my father to St. Joseph, but I kind of will. But my dad was in the same situation. Like, he met my mom when I was 2.5 and instantly fell in love. He had never met me and decided that he didn't care. He loved my mother so much, he knew he would love... Nope. He knew he would love me. And so he chose that before he even met me. Mm-hmm. And then he met me, and obviously we're great, but
Right.
But it's that responsibility of yeah.
Well, in the St. Joseph, the story of St. Joseph, where it says like he was going to like divorce her quietly.
Yeah.
That's like actually heavily debated by theologians, where some people will say
yeah.
he knew it wasn't that he thought she was like unfaithful, and that she became pregnant by another man. It was that he knew what was taking place. Like, oh, this is the Messiah being born of you, and he was like, okay, I'm definitely like not worthy.
Oh wow.
Because I'm just a regular guy. So he
Yeah.
was sort of like, all right, I'll like step away and let you do your thing. And then the angel appears to him and says, it's not about you being worthy. God has chosen you. Of course you're not good enough, but God will work through you.
Yes.
God still wants you to be the head of the household, still wants you to be the leader
Yeah.
of the greatest woman to ever live and the Son of God.
Yeah.
And St. Joseph's like, well, okay.
No, okay.
I'm definitely not worthy, but if God is telling me like
Right.
this is, you've been chosen for this, then all right, I'll do it.
The crazy thing about that is God told him he's not worthy, but you are through me.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's everyone throughout the entire Bible. It's not like you are so great, so we are choosing you. It's like, no. I'm going to work through you.
Yep.
You're terrible. You're a sinner. right? Everyone. Noah, Moses, Abraham,
David.
Yeah, David
Oh,
especially.
David,
Yeah.
dude. Yeah. I was
Like,
actually.
it's not about you.
No, it never is.
Or even Solomon of great
Yeah,
wisdom
right.
and some of the mistakes he made.
Well,
Right.
and that's what,
Yeah.
because you go through the whole lineage of Jesus, especially in the first chapter of Matthew, right? Like, there are some high, not high as in stone, but like some high, let's reword that.
Lofty
Got that?
sins.
Lofty sins,
I
yeah.
don't have anything. But no, I meant more like people of high authority, people of great
Oh, yeah.
stature, people
Yeah,
of great authority in their culture. And yet God chose a carpenter,
Yeah.
like a lonely carpenter.
Yeah. I mean, there's a prostitute in Jesus' line.
Mm-hmm.
Like in his lineage.
I
I
believe you.
think it's I don't know how to say her name, Rahab or whatever it was.
Oh.
No, I don't
But
know.
I know there was. I mean, there's some of the lowliest people you'd think God used that lineage to be like, yeah, actually,
Check this out.
right. I'm
Hold
gonna,
my beer.
Right, exactly. I'm gonna.
I love that. I love that.
But I want to actually circle back to the time thing. I don't believe there's actual free time because I think time always costs something. I think free time is an extremely
It's an illusion.
overused word. Especially, I mean, because free time isn't free. Like you said, even scrolling your phone is using your brain, and it's way too much stimulation. And you ever like caught yourself scrolling for like an hour, and then you like put it down, and you're almost dizzy because you're just like, oh, there's a real world out here. Like I've just
Yeah.
been staring. You know what I mean?
I think that's called epilepsy.
Probably.
No, and that's one of the reasons like I've gone off all of social media for the past like I gave it up like 2 years ago. Like
wow.
deleted my Instagram account completely, all of that. Because like I have like an unending appetite for like information and knowledge. Like I love
yeah.
like I was using it for like good things.
Yeah.
But it's like too much of a good thing becomes a bad thing. And like
100%.
I would get stuck on that, like, oh, I'm gonna watch this video and that. And like, yeah, then you by the end of it, you're not peaceful. You're like anxious from all of that, like sitting and scrolling and
When I think there's a part of you that it's kind of your soul recognizing, oh wait, I just wasted all this time.
yeah.
And-
Oh yeah. You know it.
And there's minimal gain that I just received from that when I could have used that time to be with my family, or
Yeah.
even if, let's say, everyone that I know is busy, like I could have used that time a little bit more beneficial.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is we talk about technology like it's this neutral thing, and depending on how you use it, it's either good or bad. But it's like things like Instagram, those are built to manipulate you.
Absolutely.
Like it's slot machine stuff. You have people at Harvard, these top schools, learning the technology. How do we manipulate the brain and use colors so that they'll stay on longer? It's like
Oh yeah.
we're
It's
we're
the
gonna
same-
lose if you go on those things. You're gonna lose.
It's the
It's
same
gonna
thing
beat
with
you.
marketing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Marketing
right.
is all about how to entice you into buying a certain product or service. So it's to try to manipulate you
Yeah.
in order to receive your money.
And we think we don't fall for it, but we do.
I want to
You
take
know?
this time and thank you for all of you who fell for it and you like the Bourbonists.
But I think that's different with like if you're like, oh, I'm gonna sit down and watch this long form podcast. I think that's very different than like short
Scrolling.
after short after short, where
Well,
there's no intentionality behind it. It's just
Right.
like you're getting caught up in this next thing.
Well,
Right.
you don't even have to watch it if you don't want. You can listen to it in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's much more like peaceful.
Absolutely.
We're very peaceful to listen to in the background. You're welcome.
Except when we're not.
And you're welcome. Chaos is a good thing.
Adam, do you want to tell us about this bourbon?
Yeah. So I went to the St. Louis Bourbon Festival. It's like I think it was the 3rd or 4th annual one. The St. Louis Bourbon Society was created in 2016, and they started doing this festival. My dad was given VIP tickets, 4 of them. So he, my mom, myself, and my wife went, and we met some of the best, like most down to earth people. I mean, obviously there was a bunch of Buffalo Trace reps there, but I will call them out.
they
They
not
looked
down to earth?
bored. It was so sad.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, so like everybody wants Buffalo Trace stuff. So they had like Weller CYPB there, which is like it's if you can find it in the wild, it's $1,500. Like it is an
gosh.
expensive bottle, and so they had free samples, and the line was all the way around. So there was a specific floor that was only for VIP people, and the line was all the way through the entire building because everybody who was running the Buffalo Trace stands was so sad to be there because they were like, nobody wants to talk to me. They just want to try what I have. But I walked over to this guy. So Redline is an Indiana whiskey, they're distilled in Indiana. I met the guy Nick, who is their.
Is it MGP? Or is
I think it is
it sourced?
You know what? I actually think they do it themselves. It's bottled in Paducah, but it's made in Indiana, so it might be sourced. But and forgive me, all you bourbon heads out there who know more than me. But I met the distributor Nick, who's a super awesome guy. He was super jacked too, which was funny.
Yeah.
It's like
Love it.
it's hard to find somebody in the wild who's as large as I am. This dude was huge.
Out in the
And
wild.
but he everything I tried, they had a whole lineup of Redline. Everything I tried, this stuff is absolute heaven. It's the Elements straight bourbon that's finished in Amburana barrels, which Amburana is a Brazilian tree that just started coming out. Like they just started doing bourbon because they realized that it gives it like this honey sweetness without sweetening it.
I was gonna say this tastes like the one I brought the one time, which is also Amburana.
Yes.
and it's also from Indiana.
Yeah.
Starlight Distillery.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the Huber, the Carl T. Huber.
Yeah.
It
tastes exactly like that.
yeah, it's super sweet. This
I think
has
it's
got to
a little
be.
more honey than because that
Yours was like a cinnamon roll.
that was a
This
cinnamon
is
roll.
the cinnamon's like half, and they said it was.
It's like a
another one.
cinnamon honey.
yeah, but this is
This is a
outstanding.
great like fall.
Yes.
drink. Yes.
Yep.
It still has that like baking, almost like pumpkin spice.
I would
flavor to
actually.
it.
I want to bring this because I want to bring this to my dad because he helps create the cocktails for Billy G's, and I want to bring this to him and be like, I know it's like $70 a pop, but you might want to start making some like fall old fashions with this.
Oh,
I think that would be outstanding.
that'd
Yeah.
be great.
I
So-
don't know about putting a $70 bottle of whiskey in the next drink. I'm not about
Blasphemy.
that.
Blasphemy.
The thing I found with old fashions is like you almost want because you're adding in the syrup and the bitters already. Like
Just
this
a
almost
regular
tastes like it
bourbon.
has bitters in it already.
Yeah.
It might be like too much.
You,
if you made an old
no,
fashioned
you're
with
right.
this.
And
I don't
maybe
know.
that's what they're trying to get at because it tastes like a cocktail. It's so sweet.
So one thing I love
Yeah.
doing is having seasons for different drinks.
Yeah.
So like in the fall and winter, I love Scotch. That's my Scotch season. And then like spring and summer, it's bourbon, it's gin, gin and tonics.
Shout out to Aviation Gin.
Vodka.
Oh, aviation is great. Yeah, vodka too. But
Well,
I
careful
don't
with
like
that.
vodka.
but this time of year, now this isn't a Scotch, but like the flavor profile is just so fall.
It's
Oh, yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, there's like a hint of pine cone. There's
Yep.
cinnamon,
I see
honey.
that.
I still think
Yeah, it's beautiful.
so.
Cheers.
We're kind of on a side tangent here, but one of my favorites is that Breckenridge spiced. The Breckenridge.
Never had that.
So the Breckenridge
That was
is
so
from the
good.
Tastes like
Breckenridge
Christmas.
distillery. I
Yeah.
got it when I was in Colorado because that's the only place I could find it. But
That
it
was so
literally
Maybe you did
it-
bring that once, did you?
It was
Yeah,
like
we
if
tried it
that
at
pine
Christmas
and
last year.
mint, and it was like if you
And
took a
s-
pine
Oh, I wasn't
tree and blended
Just-
it up somehow and
Just
drank it.
squeezed it.
I'm telling you, that was Christmas in a glass.
Yeah, it was.
And at
oh,
about-
yeah,
so
they
good.
just wring out a pine tree.
And about 90 to 100 proof. Yep, it was.
Wow.
Oh my goodness, that was perfect.
Yeah, it was beautiful. But this stuff, I tried this, and I actually have a video of me trying it because my wife was filming with it, of me knowing. And you could see it, the look on Nick's face when I tasted it, and he was like, I told you. Like, it's outstanding.
Oh yeah.
I love this stuff. And the cooler part is Nick gave me his cell number, and he wants to try to be on, too.
Sweet.
Sweet.
Yeah, buddy.
And he was like, "Oh, I'll get the master distiller on for you as well if you want." And I was like,
Oh yeah.
"Okay, that's
Why
fine
not?
with me."
Yeah.
But yeah, that's tough. A lot of work and a lot of well used time went into this bottle for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good.
Well, and I do think that's important.
Joseph's
like,
lighting up his second because it's Joseph.
Because he's
Yeah.
Joseph. Because he can.
I do think that's important though, is to, like, we're talking about using your time intentionally,
Yes.
and especially as a father, like you have to dedicate time to your kids, but it's also to help you remember, like, your job as a father is to provide, your job as a mother is to provide for the kids and for your husband, and And so, especially like your job as a husband is to make sure that you at least have the ability to provide your family with the things needed that your wife can't.
Right.
Yeah.
I
And
think. Yeah. Go ahead.
And no, I was just, and so like making sure that you're doing your absolute best and your intention, which means you do have to sacrifice time with the kids in order to provide either financially or some other way to where you're at least bringing your part to the table.
Right.
I actually, I'll spring bank off of that, or spring bank. Ha, it's a good scotch.
Scotch.
Just go
But
with it.
I'll spring off of that. I think that another phrase that's overused is use your time wisely, because wisdom can look different for everybody. I think you should use your time intentionally.
Well, I think that is wise.
But what I mean, yeah, I get.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like
Yeah.
wisdom or like the prudent decision in this situation is not going to be the prudent decision in this person's life.
Right,
It
exactly.
depends on how many kids you have, what is your job, like
Right.
so many factors
Yeah,
determine what's
exactly.
prudent for you.
Exactly right. I mean, it goes back to my and I'll talk about my dad again. We are talking about fatherhood, so like my dad, I specifically remember I hated that he worked so much when I was a kid, but when he was with us, it was so intentional. Because I remember the times that we actually spent together. I remember the first time I ever went fishing with him. I remember the first time that he and I ever shared a cigar. I remember the first time that we shared a drink together. Like it's all intent. When he has the time, it's intentional. It's not like it's not his free time. Was that a child? Uh-oh.
That's my phone, Bub.
Yeah. Text her and see if everything's okay. Anyway, but it's always intentional, because he was the busiest guy I'd ever met. Always working, and he worked his ass off, and he still does, just to provide for the life he has now. But even then, like I've asked him to be on the podcast like 4 or 5 times. And eventually he came to me and he was like, "Look,
No.
I'm not saying no. I hate the fact that I have to say no to you so much. Schedule it far enough out to where I can prepare for it. Because most, if not all, of the time that I have away from my job, I'm spending with your mother.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want my time, first of all, do it during a day she's teaching. Second of all, like, his time is extremely intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Intentionally spent. And I guess you could say, yeah, it's wisdom for the moment. But his time is extremely intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and to piggyback off of
Spring break.
Yeah, spring bank.
Mine's on Scotch. It's a great place.
Off of being intentional and wise with your time, plan for, they say like dress for the job that you want, and not for the job that you have necessarily.
Sure.
Like plan for the vocation now while you have the free time, like you're single.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
Foster while one is single. Yeah.
There you go, Dan. He's talking to you.
Yeah. And anybody out there that's listening, like if you're single, spend this time to grow in character and diligence and hard work. Foster good habits that are conducive to a flourishing life down the road.
Yeah.
Plan for tomorrow. So if you waste time as a bachelor, it's going to be really difficult to give up a lot of those habits when suddenly when you're forced to embrace these new responsibilities.
Yeah.
So if you get used to doing whatever you want, sleeping in, going to bed whenever you feel like it, eating whatever you want, whatever. When you get married and suddenly you have to give your time to your wife and to your children, that's good. You are going to, you're setting yourself up to have a kind of like a complaining attitude towards those things. You're going to grumble because you got used to this kind of false reality. We are built for work and structure and sacrifice and death to yourself. But if you don't practice that in the time of your life when you could, so like when you're single, you don't have as many responsibilities. That's a great time to prepare for the future.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that goes back to, Dan, what you said earlier of like, you cannot serve two masters, right? And
Yeah.
if you try to, it's going to cause intense frustration on both ends. So I think you really start to realize that in a marriage and family, like you have kids and you have a wife and you're still trying to hold on to like all your
Yourself.
selfish desires.
Yeah.
And I think marriage and fatherhood exposes all your selfishness. Like I know it's done that for me where like I still have all these things that I want and this personal time that I want to have and all of these things.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you are trying so hard to hold on to that and still be a good father and be a good husband, that causes this like, you're trying to serve two masters.
Yeah.
It's like, that's why vocation is you're called to die to yourself and say,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm willing to give up all of that for the sake of this thing that I'm called to. And it's not easy. I think it's a life. It takes a whole life to get good at that to a certain
And it's
extent.
funny
Yeah,
how
yeah.
you bring up die to yourself. That kind of reminds me of I was watching this YouTube short. It was Charlie Kirk describing why do the grooms wear black? Why do they specifically wear black on their wedding day and the brides wear white? Because their wives are supposed to be a symbol of purity, and it's all because marriage is a religious.
Sure.
It is a religious ceremony, right? Celebrating this initiation into a new vocation or into your vocation, the one specifically made for you. And so the bride is supposed to resemble purity. That's why she's wearing white, to whereas the husbands are wearing black because it is supposed to be a symbol of them dying to themselves for the better, to protect the purity of their wife, to protect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had heard that before my wedding, so I wore literally all black, like black shirt, black suit,
that's
black
right.
tie.
That's
like, I was
awesome.
full
Yeah,
black.
yeah.
Because I was like, you know what? If that's what it is, I want to go all in.
As
Yep.
soon as I heard that, that's exactly my first thought. I was like, I'd want to wear like an all black. That would be
Yeah, and it looks good too.
absolutely. I love the all black look. It's
All
great.
black with a white tie.
But it's easy to go into that. Like it's a very romantic idea. Like, when you're engaged and you're first married, but then, a few years in, you start to realize like, oh wow, like this really demands
hurts.
a lot. Yeah, it hurts. And you're not perfect at it.
Right.
And it's easy to like beat yourself up over that, like, and be like, oh, I should be like perfect at this.
I
But then
shouldn't be
back to the St. Joseph thing. It's not about you being perfect. It's about you
Doing
are you
your best
continually
right now.
striving for that.
Yeah.
Because you never will be perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not about even being perfect. Like, I think it's a little bit
Yeah.
of a
That's true.
a false goal to try to be perfect at something. The goal should just be to get better
Yeah.
every day. Perfection is never achieved. It will never be achieved on this earth.
Yeah.
There was actually, this is cool. There's a our local seminary here, Kenrick. They built this beautiful church, and the architecture, he purposely in the tile of the floor going around the altar. There's this cool pattern tile that's going around it, and there's one spot where he purposely turned 3 of the tiles the opposite direction so that it wouldn't be perfect, as a way of like showing
Oh,
that
interesting.
nothing is truly perfect. Like nothing that we create will ever be perfect. And so it was also a way of like, humility. Like Christ
Yeah.
is the perfect one.
Yeah.
I'm not going to kid myself in thinking I can create something perfect for Christ, but I'm going to do the best that I can. And in my humility and through God's grace, perfection may come through it.
Yeah.
Or at least the closest thing we can have on this earth. But I thought that was neat. He purposely
yeah,
turned the
I like
tile
that.
around just to keep himself humble.
Well, and that's the cool thing about the saints is like the saints are not people who are like so virtuous on their own. They were the ones who humbled themselves to allow Christ in to transform them. So then it's like a saint can't take the credit for it.
Yeah.
It's like, I fell in love with Christ and look what he did to me.
It's
Or
the fact
look what he
that they
did with me.
tried.
Right.
They just tried to live their best each and every day.
Right.
And I love Saint Therese of Lisieux, like the little flower. Like, do everything you can to your absolute best with the best of intentions, because that's how we're all meant
Intentional time.
to live. Yeah.
Intentional time.
Use your time intentionally. Do everything, whether it's laundry, whether it's smoking a cigar, whether it's drinking whiskey. Like, use your time intentionally and use it for the betterment of not only yourself, but for those that God has put in your life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Therese of Lisieux, I'm pretty sure she's the patron saint of missionaries. And she like never left the small French town of Lisieux. Like it's a small little town. One of my friends just went there actually.
Yeah.
And she's the patron saint of missionaries. Like, stop. We think so grandiose. Like we need to do like the most important job. It's like, who are you to say what the most important job is? Maybe the small place that you are right now is the most important job.
Right.
Like
Absolutely.
do the best with what you have in your little life.
Absolutely.
And that will be
100%, dude. Yeah, and it's. I mean, the intentionality behind it, and I think I keep coming back to it because he will be on soon. My dad. We're going to talk to him soon, and I talked to him a little bit yesterday because he's a veteran, and so they had a Veterans Day assembly at the kids' school. I was a wreck the whole day because Kate sang, and then she spoke, and she's only in 3rd grade, and she did with such, and like I look over at him because they had like a big section where the veterans were sitting, and he's sitting in front, and I'm sitting all the way across where the parents sat, and he's tearing up and like they had to introduce themselves, and he spoke quickly, and whenever he's about to tear up, he speaks quickly so he can get through it, so his voice doesn't shake. But everybody like stood up and took their time, and he was like, Chris Adams, I'm here with Kate and Jack, and like he put the mic back down. So like, but he like I said, like yesterday, he had to work all day yesterday, like a 12-hour day yesterday, but he took the time in that morning to be intentional because he knew it was important to all of us, and that's, I mean, and I mentioned this early on, but I was a rebel when I was a kid. I think the reason that my dad and I get along now is because, actually, I don't know. I can't even begin to tell you the psychology behind it. But there's a quote that I heard. It said, when you're young, you idolize your parents. When you're a teenager, you demonize them. And when you're an adult, you humanize them. And for the most of the population, I believe that's true.
Yeah.
And I spent most of the time that I lived with him demonizing him but all he was trying to do was to teach me to live with intentionality. And that was the biggest, like they were never too strict. I had a curfew growing up, but like nothing crazy. And even when I messed up in astronomical ways, he was always like, all right, so you messed up. And then we would fight, but then he'd sit me down and be like, look, how are you going to move forward? And I read another quote yesterday that said, you know what's funny to me? All of us are 100% on living through the worst days of our lives. We've all come through it because we're all still alive. And so, and he still to this day teaches the utmost intentionality because everything he does is on purpose. Everything. I mean, obviously, dropping a cup or something and breaking it, but like that's not. But that's who he taught me to be. Yeah. Don't ever think that you have free time. Understand that you have intentional time. That you have time in your hands, whatever it is in your schedule. I didn't mean to like brush your leg there.
Yes, you did.
You're good.
But it was the greatest lesson that he ever taught me was, and I shifted it into my fatherhood because I was a kid who had kids and grew up real fast because I just watched him. Because I understood maybe this guy that I've been fighting for years understands the meaning of time. Understands the meaning of never wasting it. Yeah. And I got through that without crying. I'm moving up
You're
in the world.
improving.
I'm improving.
Boy. Well done.
Actually, we had a fan come up to us the other day, and he's like, "Can you not cry in every episode? Because you make me emotional." I was like, "That's the point. Suck it."
I'm not the only crier.
You were crying too. You know it.
Right.
It's just allergies.
Oh man. But what was so I'm interested if you're okay. But what was it like? So what do you think you're going to be like as a father?
I don't know.
I know you have plans to like
think about
the whole cigar plan is fantastic.
Yeah.
Smoking your son's cigars in front of him, that's awesome. But
Love it.
One day, son.
But
One
not
day.
today.
That's right. But not yet.
I mean, even
Not yet.
when on the day of his baptism, because Joseph is my son Ben's godfather, and so even on that day, you pulled me aside and you're like, "Do you have any idea how excited I am to have my first cigar with my godson?" And I was like, "Yeah, you're waiting 18 years."
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately,
It's a long time.
The hell, Dad?
But what do you think you're going to be like as a father?
Well, something that I'm working on is growing in patience. I hope that I will be a father that is calm, strict, but in a loving way.
Yeah.
And reasonable. So like taking the time to sit them down and explain, this is why I'm telling you to do this. This is why I'm disciplining you. This is why you're in trouble. This is not a lack of love, but this is why I'm asking you to do this for your benefit. And ultimately, I hope that I raise men that will help in the flourishment of society, men that will defend women. I hope that I raise sons that will take care of their mother. I hope that I raise daughters that will be good, loving companions. If they're all called to marriage, I hope that they are good wives and will be able to pass on, help. I hope that my daughters will help raise, good children in their vocations. Or if they're called to the religious life, then I hope they will be great prayer warriors. And same thing for my sons too, if they become priests.
Yeah.
But I have thought about that. I don't know if I've come to a final conclusion, but I want to be a great father. I want to be loving, steady, constant force in their life.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten better with this, but growing up, I used to have a temper, and
Really?
I used to yell.
Really?
Yeah. And I hope that I have
Bull.
I call bullshit.
Oh, I don't know. My brother's over there.
Daniel's like, I'm terrified. That's why I sit over here.
Daniel can attest to it. No, I used.
Daniel's like, yell.
Yeah.
I didn't even do the half of it.
What's that, Daniel?
You used to hit me.
Yeah, I look like a mad gorilla.
You should just throw shit at me.
Yeah. No, I think I can say I used to have there's still that temperamental spirit within me that I have to say no to, and I still feel that welling up. And there are times when I will lose my temper.
You feel
I have
that
not
caveman
lost
DNA
it.
come up.
Right. I have not lost it with my wife, and I hope that continues to be the case. As life becomes stressful.
Well, I heard someone say this once, like, actually a more intimidating father, intimidating in a good way. He said, my dad, like, never raised his voice ever. He said, but he still, like, put the fear of God in me. He said one time at dinner, I, like, said something sassy to my mom, like, something really rude. And then my dad, like, didn't even look up, didn't yell back at me, just said, son, after dinner, meet me in the den. And he was like, our dad had this den that we never went into. He's like, I had never been in it in my entire life. He was like, so I sat there the rest of the dinner, like, so afraid.
Yeah.
And, like, that's a better approach. And actually, I think especially your sons will respect you more than if you, like, just lose your temper in the moment, can't control your emotions, or constantly yelling. You won't even appreciate that. Like, but, like, that calm, collected, like, I'll talk to you later.
Right.
And you better be ready.
Well, I'll be honest. I grew up with, my dad used to, our family's just kind of loud. Let's just say that.
No.
And so, like,
I don't call bullshit on that.
I'd be getting yelled at. And my brother, unfortunately, would be, like, right behind my dad, like, mocking, almost like slapping his ass while he's screaming at me. So I'm crying, laughing while my dad is screaming at me. And so, and obviously me laughing, looking at my dad in his eyes while he's yelling at me, looking at my eyes, and I'm crying, laughing. Yeah, it just...
It was a great combo, you and Tim, and just...
Yeah.
So it doesn't have the effect in the same way.
No, not at all. And plus, like, I'm kind of a nice thing, I guess, by growing up with people yelling is you get used to it. You just recognize it's loud talking. So me being a manager at my old job, I'd get yelled at all the time. I'd get called names, and I'd be like,
what's new?
I didn't know you were a distant relative. Like, what are you doing here? who you related to,
Yeah.
but it did get me kind of used to the way the world works, because when people get angry, not a lot of people in general, when they get angry, are able to calm themselves.
Yeah.
They tend to live with their emotions on their sleeves, especially
Yep.
nowadays. And so it helped me kind of
You
get ready
offended
and
me.
prepare
Okay.
for being yelled at and being treated not necessarily poorly. I know it was all out of love, especially from my family side, but but no, there has been something that has always been very intriguing about, like, and there's something I feel like there's more weight with, like,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
with someone who's, and I will tell you, like, my mom used to yell at me all the time too. I mean, it happens in a loud family, but like when my mom and dad weren't yelling and I knew I did something wrong, that's the funny thing is that's when I was the most afraid.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's when I was like, oh, I did something really bad. Oh. And then my mom, there was one time especially when I remember this vividly. So I was an underage kid and I loved video games. I kind of coerced my grandma into helping me buy Grand Theft Auto. So my mom catches me playing Grand Theft Auto as I'm doing something I probably shouldn't be doing in Grand Theft Auto. And I just remember my mom looked at me real calm, just goes, Dan, I'm really disappointed in you. And just walked upstairs. And I was like,
That hurts.
Knife to the heart.
like, she didn't say, I'm going to get your father. She didn't say, Dan,
Good
what the
round.
like, she didn't scream. She didn't yell. She just looked at me dead in the eyes, like almost stoic. And she just goes, I'm really disappointed in you. And then walked upstairs. And I was like, well, my life's over.
Yeah.
Well, and I think part of the reason why not showing your full emotion that you might be feeling, I think the reason why it's so powerful is it shows this extreme self-control.
Yeah.
And
It's a fruit of the spirit.
it is.
Yeah.
So I think about, like, Benjamin Franklin. He says it's better to be thought a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
You know, I would rather my kids think, I haven't seen
Yes.
I haven't
Dad's
seen
full
the fool.
strength. I haven't seen my dad's full strength.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want
You
to.
always want
But-
to keep them guessing.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
if I come out and I show them the best I've got, then they might be like, "Oh, I could take that."
We can push his buttons all day.
Right.
We can handle
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and oftentimes when you start yelling and shouting, you set the bar so high, and then you can't always back it up.
Yeah.
Because, like, if I'm
Yeah.
at this level yelling at you, am I really going to bring? Is everything going to be taken to that level? Because
Yeah.
like if things escalate that high, you think about like a street fight. Two people are yelling at each other on the street corner. The natural progression is then you start beating into each other.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to do that with your kids. So why get to that point, to that level, verbally and emotionally, if you can't and shouldn't back it up physically?
Yeah. No, 100%.
So, you know, in a sense, like, keep it calm and collected. One, when you start yelling, you shut off your brain. You stop thinking rationally, and then you start saying things you don't mean, and you might do things that you regret. So, like, keep it calm and talk to them. Treat them with respect.
100%. Yeah.
I do think there are times where it's probably a good thing to raise your voice, but it should be the exception, not the rule.
Yes.
And then it means
Yeah.
more in those moments when, especially it's like a dangerous situation. You're yelling
Right.
at your kid like they're about to walk in the street and get hit by a car.
Right.
It's like that's an imminent danger.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's something like you made a mistake at the dinner table in the way you spoke to your mom, like you can just say, "Oh, let's talk later." There's no reason you need to get overly angry in the
This
moment.
is why I don't use foul language very often at all, because if you use the F word to describe everything, then is everything really effed up?
Yeah.
You know, the word loses its meaning. But in a moment, in an intense moment, like, those words do have power, and so save it for those correct moments.
Yeah.
But other than that, we have a dictionary full of really amazing words that are far greater than than 1 or 2 syllable words. Let's practice those. Let's articulate our thoughts and our feelings because we're rational beings.
Yeah.
We don't have to resort to these low creature, simple syllable, easy to understand
Well, yeah, because
words.
swear words, like they're actually not words. It's just communication. It's like saying "ow" when you stub your toe. Like it's the words are actually stored in a different part of your brain.
Oh, that's a good point.
wow.
Yeah.
And and then if you bring it to the forefront, then like he said, it's like if you use it all the time,
Once you let the cat out of the bag,
there's no meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, to bring it back to like the whole stay calm and self-control, were you? I'm sorry.
No, that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
it.
That's something else I've been working on. I tend to cut people off, and I hate it when people do it to me. So I just
That's fine.
I try to stay quiet. But
If we all do it, then it's fine.
yeah, right.
Right? That's how it works.
F that.
But there was a moment. So my daughter has a temper, and then I do counseling because I have very, 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 very slight. But I mentioned this in the last episode. But I have slight autism, and I have something called PDD. It's pervasive developmental disorder. It means that I'm like slightly behind emotionally maturity. So like I get along with people who are younger than me, better than my own age, and then older than me, which is ironic. But right. But I got diagnosed recently with something called IED, which is intermittent explosive disorder, where I am, and I if research has done me correctly, so I have pretty severe ADHD, and that is 9 times out of 10 a side effect of that, where I deal very, very well in super high stress situations. I'm extremely like when a kid slices his finger or cuts open something, or we're about to crash in the car, or like because somebody does something crazy. I'm a great driver, but somebody else does something crazy, and I'm calm as all can be.
Interesting.
But if somebody drops something and pulls me out of hyper focus and it scares the crap out, that's why I don't go to haunted houses, because the last time I did, I punched somebody. But it's because it's just the way that my brain is wired that I explode with intensity, the smallest of things. And so I've had to learn recently that that's an actual disorder, and it's something that I have to watch. And it goes into, as a father, you don't want to explode on everything. And we were having, a couple of months ago, we were having some pretty severe problems with my daughter doing the same thing, where she would explode over the smallest of things. And she's my daughter, so most likely, 50% chance she's got the same things that I do mentally. And so she would explode over the smallest. So my wife and I kind of figured out that if we attack everything with a level of grace and with a level of calm, and there was that moment that you said you don't want to show your full strength, right? And I used to do that all the time. I would just yell immediately, and then they were just like immediately scared, and then they would just do things out of fear, not respect.
Yeah.
And so my wife or my daughter would start exploding or whatever, and we had a moment recently where she just went off the wall crazy. And we told her to go to her room for the rest of the day because, like, you're grounded. You don't get to talk to us that way. You don't get to react this way. That's not how we act here. Right? But she had seen me explode so many times that, like, and I would just be loud. I wouldn't be physical, right? But it was still just loud, and it didn't mean anything. It's like the cuss word thing. Like, over and over again, it just loses its meaning.
Right.
And so she would test us. And so one day she exploded. And I was like, you know what? You're grounded for the rest of the week. Go to your room. Well, I don't want to. And so I just very gently went over, took her hand, and she pulled away from me and like threw herself to the ground. And I still held on. And then she kicked at me, and I caught her foot. And she just stared at me, and I go, please. And she was just like, okay. Like, it was one of those where, like, that's Dad's full strength. I have nothing. Like, because it's the calmness of, like, I didn't yell at her.
Right.
I was very kind. I was like, hey, sweetheart, I'm sorry, but the way that you've been acting, you're grounded for the rest of the day. Like, I said it exactly like that. And because I didn't yell, it threw her off. So then she got violent, and then I proved that her violence doesn't mean anything either, because I'm still the father. Right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, hey, come on, let's go.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, let your words have the weight. You
Exactly.
know, not your actions, not your temper. You know, it's. I think we've all heard this. Like, the person you should fear the most is the quietest one in the room. They're usually the ones that out of nowhere will, like.
It's like the Aragorn
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like,
sitting there.
It's the ranger in the corner.
That's right. Because
Be the ranger in the corner.
oftentimes the person that's like the really loud and nothing to say against confidence, but like the guy that's really cocky
Yeah.
generally doesn't always perform the best.
Yeah.
And
no,
it's
that's
the
true.
humble one that doesn't have to prove himself, and then he's called upon to act, and then that's the person that's usually the greatest.
Daniel, can you check the camera?
Do you guys know John Lovell, the warrior poet guy?
I've
No,
heard the name.
I don't.
He's super cool. He was an I'm pretty sure Green Beret. Not positive. But I
Wait,
think
John
so.
Lovell?
John Lovell.
Yeah. Okay.
That's- is that-
Yeah, I
I
know.
think that's what I said.
I think that's
Anyways, he always talks about the most dangerous man in the room, and like, he looks like this just average guy, and he always he's concealed carrying all the time.
Sure.
He's like, the most dangerous man in the room is usually not the like totally jacked NRA tattoo guy.
Yeah.
He's like, it's someone like me who has just looks like an average dude, but like he has all these like hidden skills that like no one notices. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of what you want to shoot for, is what he always says.
Yeah.
Yeah, the person who's always confident, or the person who seems confident, and the one who's like, "Oh, I'm the best person in the room." Especially like, it's the whole phrase like, if you gotta say it and you have to preach it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
not necessarily.
Well, it's the
true.
Batmans of the world, right? It's the secret identity of like, you have no idea who I am when I put the mask on. And even when I put the mask on, I'm not loud. I'm quiet. And I'm in the dark. But I'm super intimidating. And I have this whole belt full
Yeah.
of stuff. I'm Batman. But this whole belt full of stuff that you're just like, I can take care of literally any situation and don't have to bat an eye.
Yeah.
Because it's dangerous underneath. There's oh my gosh, his name's Brian. He runs a strongman gym in Ohio, I think.
Was it Brian Shaw?
No, it's Brian something else.
Never heard of him.
he started a campaign years ago, and I bought one of his shirts. But essentially, it was like, it's the Jordan Peterson of like, because he preaches all the time about be dangerous and be lethal. And then, someone questioned him one time, well, doesn't that make me a threat? And he's like, no, but you should want to be. And it's the meek should inherit the earth is taken out of context so much. Meek doesn't mean quiet. Meek means you have the skills of a master swordman, but choose not to use your sword.
Yeah, he says the definition of the word is literally those who have swords but choose to keep them sheathed.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
the
awesome.
phrase that I heard.
So you should be dangerous.
The definition or the term meek that I heard is when you find like a wild stallion, when you tame it, it's called meeking the horse.
Interesting.
So you meek the wild
awesome.
horse. So it has its strength and its capability to be wild, but what it is it's a tamed strength.
Yeah.
So it's used for a specific purpose.
Right.
Wow.
And that's why Jordan Peterson he goes off of that to say the school shooters are not those people.
Nope.
They're just weak. Right?
Yeah.
It's not that they have too much strength, it's that they don't have enough.
Yes.
They
So that
didn't have
they-
enough strength to be able to withhold from that. 'Cause-
Right.
And Jordan Peterson talks about this. Like, everybody has that capability to be a mass shooter.
Yep.
Every
Sure.
one of us, every person in the
Yeah.
face of this world has that capability. And the whole thing is you have the strength to not do it.
Yeah.
Right.
You have the strength to recognize, wait a minute, that's not a good thing to do, so I'm not going to do it.
Right.
Well, and it makes sense why people see stuff like that, and one conclusion is we need to get rid of masculinity because it's dangerous. But the other conclusion, and I think the one that we're really trying to push on this podcast, is no, the answer to it is the proper masculinity. It's actually more
Yes.
strength, not
Form.
less strength.
Yes, the true form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the most masculine man is the most self-sacrificial man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what we want. We should be pushing masculinity even harder, not...
Oh,
Right.
yeah. Because the guy that shoots up a school, you don't look at that guy and think, huh, what a man.
Right.
You know, that was so much masculine. No, it's
That's easy.
that's easy. I mean, yeah, exactly. That
Like,
took
the temper
no,
is easy. All
that
of
took
stuff.
no strength
Right.
to do that.
Yeah.
That you were preying on people that were weaker than you. But true strength is helping those who are weaker than you.
Yeah.
You know, and being an aid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a video that went I don't know when, but it went viral for a while. There was a school shooter who came in with a shotgun, and he was just trouncing. He didn't shoot anybody, but he was about to. And this one guy, this one police officer, or SWAT team or something, he pulled out his gun, he dropped it, and he just walked up to the dude and he hugged him.
Dang.
And the dude dropped the gun. Because you have to be strong enough to understand, oh my gosh, what did my therapist told me the other day? He goes, you know what's weak about men is that they're weak. A man's vulnerability is that he has vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And he
That
needs
makes sense.
he needs to recognize them
Yeah, wow.
so that he can improve himself.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand that it's okay to be weak during certain situations. It's okay that you don't have all the answers to everything. Because this culture is so obsessed with trying to find the fix-all for all things, and everybody just, you can be free, do what you want, whatever. But there is no fix-all because everyone's different. We're not all equal.
Right.
We all have the same equal amount of freedoms, but we're not all equal. Stop trying to make it so we all think and act the same. We're not an AI. We're human beings.
Right.
And it's the understanding, and it's part of that masculinity. It's kind of, that's why our staple is kind of rediscovering true masculinity, because it's not the, I know this may hurt your feelings, but it's not the John Waynes. It's a mixture of who he was and also being vulnerable. And also being like, actually the reason I sit down and have a cigar with my friends is because I'm having a really week. And I need someone to talk to.
Right. Well, and all this stuff, like, whiskey and cigars, that can just be like a facade to be like, I'm a man because but like, that's not at all what any of us are trying to, like, we see that as like an avenue to go deeper into true masculinity.
It's an opportunity. It's a door that opens up.
Right. Because you can be the weakest man and still smoke cigars and drink whiskey. Like
Yeah.
It's almost meaningless.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I know a guy who, has all the money in the world. He's a hard worker, but he's a terrible father. So like but he thinks that his masculinity is found in working hard, but it's only outside the home. When he comes home, he retreats. He goes into his closet. He reads, all this stuff. He might even, I think he even says the rosary on his own. But there's no fostering that in the family, which is interesting.
Yeah. I love you guys.
I love you too, Adam.
Weak.
Didn't we just talk about this?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Everybody at home, gentlemen, Daniel,
You're welcome.
thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.